Welcome on to the final show of the week. PGA Championship narratives, final thoughts, interview reactions. I'm Matt Gannon of the Golf Gambling Podcast, and this is my probably favorite show of the week. We have one more sleep until the frost delay tomorrow morning. I'm pretty sure we are going to get a delay. Let me retweet this on Twitter real quick. I'm pretty certain that we're going to get a delay tomorrow morning. So if you want to wake up at 6:50 a.m. and watch the PGA Tour professionals, PGA Club professionals hit those opening tee shots, you might be a bit disappointed to see a frost delay. I heard that if there is a delay, they're gonna somehow get the fans off the golf course because they don't want to have anyone touching any of the grass because it's like winter grass and they don't want to. I'm not really sure the agronomy of the whole sorts, but if there's a delay, they don't want the fans to be on the golf course. I don't know how that's going to be possible. I'm interested to see how it pans out. I'm praying there's not a delay because I'll be up tomorrow morning. I got a full-time job, so I'm going to be up in the morning, going to catch some shots before I go in and watch golf all day on my computer. But, I mean, it's the PGA Championship. We got a major number 2 of the year. So let's get into some of these narratives. I got my Southern Hills shirt on tonight. If you know me, you know I get a shirt every time I hit an outright winner, JT, last year. So let's do it again. Let's do it again. And at the end of the show, I will talk about who I'm warming on, who I'm cooling on, just based on some of the narratives. So let's get into it. First, I want to talk about like the golf course a little bit. So many players noted the winged foot comp. JT, Rory, Rahm, Max Homa, and Fitz all mentioned something about how this kind of feels like winged foot, whether that be just the grass type, the location, the style of golf, the bomb and gouge. Everyone was saying winged foot. And the one thing I do remember the 2020 US Open going into winged foot was everyone was like, you got to play accurate drivers. The fairways are going to be so narrow, so fast. If you're not in the fairway, you're toast. And which, I mean, kind of made sense, but those fairways were so narrow and so fast that not even the Kevin Streelmans, the Ches Reeves, the Brian Harmons of the world were hitting the fairways. Even the short and accurate plotters were missing fairways. So whoever was longest just went to the top of the leaderboard, and that showed with Bryson, Matt Wolf, Harris English, Will Zalatoris, all like up in the top of the leaderboard. So I don't think that is going to be the case this week. I really think, I mean, these fairways are on the narrower side, but I think they're very playable and very hittable and not as fast as we saw at Winged Foot. So I think driving accuracy is going to be a bit more important than the bomb and gouge narrative I'm hearing on Twitter and in the media this week. I'm hearing a lot about all the trees were removed. I mean, they were removed. It's not like a fake thing. The trees were removed. You're going to be able to take more aggressive lines and stuff like that. But I don't think you're going to be able to just bomb it and run it up like you did at Wingfoot. I mean, John Rahm kind of stated it best, and I'll start to get into some of the players here. John Rahm did compare it to Wingfoot, but he stated that you're not going to be able to run it up out of the fairways. I mean, through the fairways and onto the green like you did at Wingfoot, because a lot of these greens are very well protected by the bunkers. And he specifically said these bunkers are no joke. So you're going to have an elite around the green set. You're going to have to be elite from the sand because, I mean, everyone's going to miss fairways. Everyone's going to miss greens. You can't turn those bogeys into double bogeys or vice versa, something like that, pars into bogeys. And I'll hop right into Justin Thomas. He's basically stated how the margins are so small on this golf course. You have to be smart when you get into trouble. So that makes me think, like, who are those super, super aggressive guys who are going to go for that trick shot to save par, to do whatever they can to save par? Maybe Jordan Spieth, maybe Justin Thomas, maybe Sahith Theegala, those type of guys. And they're guys who do well getting out of trouble, but you can't take that risk at this golf course. You're gonna make that, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna make that extra mistake. You're gonna turn that bogey into a double bogey. You're gonna turn that par into a bogey if you try to just do too much. And I mean, Justin Thomas was very honest, and he knows that's how he plays. But if he's aware and he can say, look, I can't do the most right here. I got to just hit this stock shot and just play safe, take my bogey, take my 15 feet for par, something like that. And that's what you need to do, because I get so mad at Justin Thomas when he plays golf courses. He tries to hit 30-yard rope draws around dogleg left fairways. Dude, just play a little cut. Like, if you're 20 yards back than where you could have been, and then you're hitting that rope draw and you're 30 yards left into the trees. Like, he tries to do too much because he's like the best artist on tour. But it's when Justin Thomas isn't doing that is when he's like playing good golf. Honestly, that makes me think about the players. Remember when he hit that like low stinger draw on 18 at TPC Sawgrass? That was literally like 3 feet from going into the water. By no means did he need to do that. He was leading the golf tournament. Just play a if you want to play a draw, just hit a normal low draw, play it more right, or just hit a high draw into the fairway. He hit that low draw that almost went in the water and cost him the tournament. Now I don't know why I just thought of that. Like, Justin Thomas, you don't have to do that, but he's aware. He said you got to play smart this week. You got to just take your medicine when it's due. Don't try to do the most. We will move on to Rory McIlroy. And now this is a doozy of an interview. One of the wildest Rory McIlroy interviews I've ever listened to, and I would say I listen to more interviews than most people. And Rory McIlroy is he changes. Sometimes he's very like energetic and answers the questions, but this week Rory McIlroy was very bland and boring and didn't really answer any questions with too much enthusiasm. They talked about the narrative with his wife being from Rochester, and he was like, I don't come here, like, I don't know this golf course that much better than anyone else. I had a few more rounds than the guys, but it's not like going to be a game changer. So I thought that was interesting because it was a narrative that I seen kind of getting driven up a little bit. He stated how this golf course posed a rare balance around the green of like super fluffy lies and super tight lies. Very interesting, because some golf courses have either one or the other. So this basically shows you're gonna have to have a complete around the green game. Like, you're gonna have to have all the shots, and not many guys on tour do. Rory McIlroy, when he's at his best, does. Justin Thomas does. John Rahm does. Patrick Cantlay does. Victor Hovland does not. And I kind of just named some of the elite guys, the elite around the green players. Obviously, the best players in the world have that full game, but you're going to have that complete around the green game, and that kind of just amplified what Rory said. They talked about some swing wise X's and O's from Quail Hollow, and he went on to obviously he did not perform at Quail Hollow and didn't perform at Augusta the few weeks before. He basically said how his club face was getting a bit too open on the way back, and after he said that, it had me thinking, because I am in a rut with my golf swing right now. This is about Rory McIlroy, not me. His club face was a bit too open on the way back, and he couldn't get it square at the top. So he went back to Florida, worked with Tiger, worked with his coach, and he basically just switched up his grip a little bit and shortened up his target line. So he is, I guess, aiming at a narrower target, which honestly, that's a real tip. Like, aim small, miss small. And he says he should have no problems with club face control and driver head accuracy this week. So that's good to hear. Um, he was one of the few guys that, not few guys, a lot of guys said this, but I'm just gonna say he said this as well, how important it is to be disciplined out there, kind of like Justin Thomas. And specifically, he said to keep it out of the fairway bunkers, which I heard all week on Twitter. They're a legit one stroke penalty. Like, if you're in a fairway bunker, you might as well just chip out or just call yourself a bogey. So saving par from those fairway bunkers are going to be very tough. It's a long golf course. Obviously, length is going to be an advantage. Par is an advantage. And finally, Rory said, they asked him if there's any insight you can give us to what you're working on in your mental game right now. Straight up, he just said less expectations. And when he said that, I got so happy, because what have we seen from Rory the last two majors? Augusta, this was Rory's major. The conditions set up well for him, and we saw what he did there. Open Championship, obviously he played really well there, but just did not have it on Sunday. Did not have the putter on Sunday. And so he just cited less expectations. And at this point in his career, I love when Rory has no expectations. I love it. I'm comparing it to what we saw at East Lake. in round 4. He went into the round 6 back of Scotty Scheffler, bogeyed the first hole, was 7 back, and by the 7th hole, he was tied with Scotty Scheffler. Obviously, Scotty had to help him a little bit, but he rattled off multiple birdies in a row, and he said in the Full Swing documentary, he was like, yeah, at that point, I was playing super carefree and I was just playing golf. And when Rory is free flowing and going, he's the best player in the world, and no one will argue that. He's a mental midget. Everyone knows that. I bet Rory this week, and I will admit that he's got mental issues when it comes to the expectations and stuff like that. So if he's saying he's got less expectations, and from his interview, kind of seemed like he didn't really care. The number drifted on DraftKings. Everyone's like, all right, I'm not playing Rory. I think Rory gets it done this week, and I'm warming on Rory even more than I already was. So that's my Rory thoughts. Quickly on Cam Young. They asked him, how does he feel about coming to Oak Hill? He basically, they asked about his game too, which I'll talk about the Oak Hill thing first. Basically went on to say that he lives nowhere close to Oak Hill. He's played here once and he barely remembers it. So just throw out that home game narrative from Cam Young, which is just like, I feel like it's just a meme at this point because I mean, if you're in the Twitter sphere, you really know that like Cam Young is not really from Rochester, New York. He's from New York, but not really near this golf course. And he says he's been here once, he lived nowhere close, and doesn't remember the course at all. But okay, talking about Cam Young's game, he said he feels like he's coming in the right direction. He had those good results at match play and the Masters, and then mediocre golf from there. He said that he feels like he played well, but he just didn't score well. And if you're talking about a golf course like this, you don't really need to score well. You got to be playing well. You got to be shooting. You got to be scoring par. So, I mean, the Cam Young thing, I was hoping it didn't get out of hand, and it really hasn't. Like the last year heading into the PGA Championship, all we heard was, "All right, Cam Young home game, Rochester, bet him 60-1, bet him whatever." The numbers obviously gone down. I don't really see Cam Young winning his first career PGA Tour event at a home game major, but yeah, I feel like he has the game for it. Long and straight off the tee. I said this a few days ago in my other shows. He has the game for it. Like no one will argue that Cam Young's course fit is bad. I didn't really like warm or cool on him. I just feel like whatever about him. I'm probably not going to play him because the ownership is still a bit too high for me. And I kind of like other guys more at lower ownership, but I don't know. I just thought it was funny that Cam Young stated, like, yeah, I do not remember this golf course. I live nowhere close to here. It's just because the home game thing was funny. All right. We will move on to Scotty Scheffler. Ever heard of him? Last week at the Byron, he said there was a few things that he needed to clean up. He said that he didn't swing it as well as he would have liked on the weekend, but that's pretty much it. He feels like he cleaned that up. He hit a lot of good putts last week that didn't go in, and he feels like his game is in a really good spot. Scary sight when Scotty Scheffler says he's playing well and his game is a good spot. You probably want to get some hold of Scotty Scheffler if you can. Impressions of this golf course, they ask him. He said it's pretty difficult. There's only 2 par 5s. Both of them are 600 yards. They're not really reachable. He said yesterday he hit the fairway on one, and he had to hit like a 300-yard draw with a 3-wood to get it anywhere close. So don't really expect guys to hit the green in 2. But he also went on to say how par is going to be massive here. And this golf course does present a few opportunities with the few short par 4s and the 3-shot par 5s. Hit your wedges close, make birdies. But I really want to dive in on what he said about how par was so important. Scotty Scheffler can make par from anywhere. I'll just off the top of my head. What was that hole number 7? I don't remember what hole it was at the Byron Nelson. I tweeted out a video of him in the trees, punched out after 7 minutes of digging through the dirt, made par from the fairway. Last year, API, what was that? His third win. I think it was his third win last year at the API. It was Sunday round. He hit a hook draw into he hit whatever he hit into the trees. Was absolutely toast. Just had to punch out. Ended up making par from 30 feet away. Had like 200 yards to get up and down from. He did. Saturday of the Masters, last year's Masters, which he won. On 18, he had a 2-shot lead, I believe. Then he hit that rope draw. He hit it OB, I think. Took a drop, got up and down from like 190 for bogey to like save his sake in the Masters. So when par is a good score, I mean, obviously Scotty Scheffler is the best player in the world, one of the best players in the world, can win in any conditions score wise, but he's such an elite scrambler. Like, we know how good the tee to green play, the ball striking is, but like his around the green and chipping might be his best asset. And it's going to be so important this week. Scotty Scheffler is more than live this week. And I kind of gave the lean to Rahm, but I'm just warming on Scheffler a little bit more. All right. Speaking of Rahm, let's talk about him. He went on to say just he got a very, very similar vibe around Bethpage and Winged Foot as he does to here. But he talked about how running the ball up will not be as easy, like I said before. He said everyone will miss fairways, everyone will miss greens. Also emphasized how important saving par will be. And those par saves are going to be huge confidence boosters in the round. Okay, off the beaten path a little bit. Robert McIntyre, Bob Mack, come into this game. How do you feel about your game? He says the game feels really good, but he went on to say that this is the toughest golf course he will ever play in his life. And I just wanted to say that Bobby Mack is a noted Diffie C's guy. He performs when par is a good score in major championships. We saw him in major championships the last like 3 years, like when like -10 is the winning score, something like that. Bob Mack does well, and he does well on those in those events over in Europe too. So I will not be surprised. Like Bob Mack top 20, go check the number. I think that is a fair bet and could more than likely hit. All right, Max Homa. This one is really interesting. He loves the golf course, quite difficult. Reminds me of Bethpage, reminds me of Winged Foot, but a little softer. Um, Talked about his game. They asked about his game coming in. He admitted that his game was not feeling great around Augusta. I'll read his quote verbatim. He said, "It's a bummer to show up at a major, the Masters, and know you have to be fighting just to score as best because you know it's going to be hard to contend because his game wasn't really in a good spot. This week, the game feels really good. I felt great last week at home and played really well at the Wells Fargo. It's nice to be here. I feel comfortable. I don't feel like I'm changing too much or working too much. I'm just here to play some golf." So he admitted that like, the game wasn't well heading into Augusta, but we saw him at Quail. He looked awesome. It looked shaky in round one, but he looks awesome. Max Homa, he performs on these kind of golf courses, will not be really too shocked to see him compete and contend in a major for the first time in his career. All right, Uncle Tone Finau. Straight up, he said, "My confidence, I think, is as high as it's ever been leading up to a major. It's a golf course that fits my style. You hit the fairway, and it's long. Those are things I've done well in this last year and in my career, and hopefully I take that into this week. I feel like a different player, more so than I've ever been, more confident in my game and my abilities than I've ever been, and just who I am as a person and as a player." I mean, a confident Tony Finau at a golf course like this is definitely scary, but there's some question marks. What does Tony, to quote Brian Kirshner, is there good? It's a flow chart. Is there good players in the field? Do you play Tony Finau? Yes or no? So Tony Finau, like he hasn't really done it in these big dick events. He was the most tipped player of the week. Therefore, he can't win the golf tournament, but he can perform well. And I kind of will see him perform well. He's in great form, obviously won in Mexico. And this golf course makes so much sense for him. He's number one on tour on approach, long and straight off the tee. Has a more than competent around the green game. He's won on bent grass multiple times in his career. So yeah, I think Tony Finau can definitely perform here. I'm gonna play him in DraftKings. He is the last man. He was the last man off my card, along with Xander Schauffele. So if Xander Schauffele or Tony Finau win, I'll be like a little bit upset, but not really because they're really popular and they were the last man off my cards for some reasons. So yeah, I think Tony Finau can definitely perform. He says he's as confident as he's ever been. So that's really excited to see if you're a Tony Finau here, if you're a Tony Finau backer. Okay, thoughts on Jason Day just not playing a practice round? Like, okay, Jason Day, you win the Byron Nelson and you're the best golfer in the world. No, that's not really what he said. He kind of just he didn't play a practice round, and he said that he wasn't going to. He's kind of just gonna swing early in the morning tomorrow and go out there and play, rely on his caddy. Crazy to think about, to be honest. But he said he kind of had to come down from that win a little bit, which is just not what you want to hear if you're a Jason Day backer, to be honest. I mean, he's playing good golf, but him not playing a practice round at one of the hardest golf course of the season, at a golf course no one's ever really seen. I don't think that's a good strategy, but suit yourself, J Day. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick. And finally, Matt Fitz said that it reminded him a lot of Winged Foot, and he loves this style. He hates when it's 25 under par. And it's just cool to see him admit that, because we know how much Matt Fitz plays well in these difficult condition formats. Would not be surprised to see him come to the top of the leaderboard. Definitely warming on him. And then finally, not every player, a lot of players noted patience, like I said with Rory. A lot of players noted patience. And one guy over the last month to talk about patience in an interview multiple times was Patrick Cantlay. Patrick Cantlay said at Harbor Town how important patience was on that golf course, and how he thinks being patient is the best skill in his golf game. Patrick Cantlay didn't do an interview for whatever reason. I'm hoping he's okay. But just like stars aligning, everyone talking about patience, one guy not to do an interview, and that was Patrick Cantlay. 20-1, 18-1. I think Patrick Cantlay can win this golf tournament. Patience is key. Saving par is key. Patrick Cantlay is a top 3 tee to green player over the last 40, 50 rounds. A little bit more popular than I'd like him to be, because I've just been on the Patrick Cantlay train for a while. He's gained strokes on the green in his last 2 starts. After that was a problem. Obviously, fucks on Northeast bent. Shout out Brian Kirshner. And he's a patient golfer. So Patrick Cantlay didn't have an interview, but I wanted to touch on that because everyone said how important patience was, and that's what Patrick Cantlay does best. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you guys got something out of this. Hopefully I can get you on or off one player, and that can get you in the green. So any questions, you know where to find me. And let's enjoy this week. I will be back Friday PM with the round weekend leaderboard update and weekend best bets. Catch you guys then.